Hello everyone, in this video we are going to have our first Japanese verb conjugation lesson, but we will only learn the present tense affirmative form and the present tense negative form for the polite form. Please note that the present tense in Japanese either means that a person habitually or regularly engages in these activities, or that a person will or is planning to perform these activities in the future. So when you use MASU Form, usually there are some time reference or frequency adverbs used in the sentence. Before we start to learn the conjugation rules, you need to know the types of verbs in Japanese language first. There are 3 types of verb in Japanese: ru-verb, u-verb, and irregular verb. Ru-verb and u-verbs are the types that follow certain conjugation rules, where irregular verbs do not follow those conjugation rules. To apply the right conjugation rules to a verb, we need to figure out whether a verb is a ru-verb or an u-verb. How can we figure out whether a verb is a ru-verb or u-verb? We usually look at the dictionary form to determine the verb type. What is dictionary form? Dictionary form is the form of verb that you will find in a Japanese dictionary. It is also called plain form or casual form, because it is the informal present tense affirmative form used among close friends or family members. The dictionary form of any Japanese verb can either end in ru or other u sound hiragana. We form different conjugations of verb from the dictionary form. When we see a verb that does not end in ru, it's 100% u verb. For example, nomu. The verb ending is mu. It does not end in ru. It's an u verb. However, for verbs ending in ru, we need to be very careful. All ru verbs end in ru, but not all verbs ending in ru are ru verbs. This might sound a little bit confusing, but don't worry. I will explain it step by step and teach you some ways to help you figure out whether a verb ending in ru is a ru verb or an u verb. Remember, there are 5 vowel sounds in Japanese: a, I, u, e, o. When the vowel sound before a verb ending ru is a sound, u sound, or o sound, it's 100% u verb. For example, wakaru. The vowel sound before ru is an a sound. Ka. Although it ends in ru, but it's an u verb. When the vowel sound before ru is an e sound or a sound, it's probably a ru verb. For example, taberu. Be is an a sound hiragana. This is a ru verb. But there are exceptions. For example, kaeru. Although the vowel sound before ru is a sound, it's an u verb and it follows the conjugation rules for u verbs. You just need to be careful when you see a verb ending in ru and do not just assume it's a ru verb. Use the method you have learned in this video and you will be fine. Now you're all prepared to learn the conjugation rules for different types of verb. We start with the conjugation rules for ru verbs, because it's more straightforward than the conjugation rules for u verbs. When we want to conjugate a verb in Japanese, we need to know the verb stem for that verb. For a ru verb, the verb stem is just the parts before ru. For example, taberu. The verb stem is just the parts before ru. So, tabe is the verb stem for taberu. We will just add masu to the verb stem. Tabemasu. Let's go over it again. For any ru verbs, the verb stem is just the parts before ru. So in this case, the verb stem is tabe. To conjugate the present tense affirmative form, we just need to add masu to the verb stem. So the present tense affirmative form is tabemasu. To conjugate the present tense negative form, we just need to add masen to the verb stem. So the present tense negative form is tabemasen. Let's try another ru verb. Miru, which means to see or to watch. The verb stem of any ru verbs are the parts before ru. So in this case, the verb stem is mi. To conjugate a present tense affirmative form, we add masu to the verb stem. The present tense affirmative form is mimasu. To conjugate present tense negative form, we just need to add masen to the verb stem. The present tense negative form is mimasen. 私はよくテレビを見ます。I often watch TV. O is a particle that indicates direct objects, which are directly involved in or affected by. It's usually used with transitive verbs. In this sentence, the direct object is terebi. In Japanese language, the direct object is placed before the verb, and you will use particle o in between to connect them. So is terebi o mimasu. It's quite different from English, so it takes some getting used to. Just take your time and practice often. Now let's go over the conjugation rules for u-verbs. The conjugation rules are still verb stem plus masu. But the steps to determine the verb stem for u-verb require a little bit more explanations. To find out the verb stems for u-verbs, let me explain it by going through one example. Nomu, which means to drink. The verb stem for nomu is nomi. Why? Let's refer back to the hiragana chart. The verb ending mu belongs to ma line. Recall what we have in that line. Ma, mi, mu, me, mo. When you want to figure out the verb stem for a u-verb, you always look for the e sound hiragana in the hiragana line where the verb ending belongs to. In this case, the e sound hiragana in this line is mi. To form the verb stem, we change mu to mi. The verb stem is nomi. After we get the verb stem, we can apply the conjugation rules to get forms we want. The verb stem is nomi. To conjugate the present tense affirmative form, we add masu to the verb stem. It becomes nomimasu. To conjugate the present tense negative form, we just add masen to the verb stem. It becomes nomimasen. Let's try another u-verb to get more familiar with the rationale. Matsu, which means to wait. Let's first find out the verb stem for matsu. The verb ending is tsu. It belongs to ta line. Recall what we have in ta line. Ta, chi, tsu, te, to. Which one is the e sound hiragana in this line? Yes, the e sound hiragana is chi. To form the verb stem, we change tsu to chi. The verb stem is machi. To conjugate the present tense affirmative form, we add masu to the verb stem. The present tense affirmative form is machimasu. To get the present tense negative form, we just add masen to the verb stem. The present tense negative form is machimasen. There are two irregular verbs that do not follow those conjugation rules. You need to memorize their conjugations. The first one is suru. The second one is kuru. Let's look at suru first. The verb stem is shi. The present tense affirmative form is shimasu. The present tense negative form is shimasen. Now for kuru. The verb stem is ki. The present tense affirmative form is kimasu. The present tense negative form is kimasen. Let me summarize what we have learned today in a mind map, and you will find it's not as hard as you think it is. First, we look at the dictionary form, and then we figure out the verb type using the method you have learned today. After you know the verb type, you determine the verb stems of that verb based on the verb type. And then you apply the conjugation rules. To conjugate the present tense affirmative form, you add masu to the verb stem. To conjugate the present tense negative form, you add masen to the verb stem. Irregular verbs do not follow these conjugation rules. You need to memorize the conjugation for irregular verbs. And did you notice one thing? Hiragana is very important. You need to be very familiar with all hiragana characters because almost all the Japanese grammars require the use of hiragana. Hiragana is very essential when learning Japanese. It's basically the foundation to everything in Japanese language. I have created a video about hiragana before. You can watch it to refresh your memory about hiragana if you want. Thanks for watching. ありがとう. Stay tuned for more videos about Japanese language.